understand
Al
that.
Michaels, the Hall of Famer, joining us on the program. Al, how you feeling?
Speaking of bad backs, not bad though, but I'm going to tee it up in about an hour and a half with Mr. Jim Nance, who is out here for the Genesis. Yes, sir.
So Nance is going to play golf
today, right? And I'm thinking about what you told me, Johnny Miller. But I'm on the range the other day, and somebody gave me 6 syllables, right? Not 4. So now I'm all screwed up.
No, keep it simple.
I'd like to, but I have like 837 swing thoughts. And the only one that works is, please God, don't let me whiff.
Yeah, but have you whiffed before?
No, but when I played in the AT&T back in 2008, I couldn't feel my body. 5,000 people are lining the fairway, and that's all I could think about. Please, God, please don't let me whiff.
And here you are, you've done all of these major events, Olympics and World Series and Super Bowl. But if I said the most nerve-wracking thing that you've ever been a part of, AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am is up there because they think you're good. And you don't want to take somebody out with a shot down the third base line.
Not only up there, it's on top of the pyramid, Dan.
Yeah.
There's nothing even close to the way I felt on the first tee at Pebble Beach. Not only are you thinking about killing somebody, but just embarrassing yourself or hitting like a 4-yard dribbler. And then you have to take a fairway with. I mean, I'm thinking, just get me out of here. Please, God. So I hit like a 140-yard ground ball down the third base line and got the hell out of there. And the rest of the day was perfect.
All you want to do is make sure that your first tee shot is great and the last putt you make on 18th. That's all you care about when you play in these Pro-Ams.
By the time I got to 18, nobody's there and nobody cares.
What you think of the Super Bowl?
Hell of a game. Great game. You know, and again, it gets, I don't want to say determined on one play. Everybody's saying, what'd you think of the call? I mean, we've seen that play 1,000 times. It's a 50-50 call. The one thing that I felt was I saw some columns and some other people talking about the fact, you can't let a game end that way. To me, I think justice should be blind. I think if it's pass interference on the first play of the game or the last play of the game, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So they called what they saw. I thought Bradbury was very classy, saying that he was hoping they would let it go, but they didn't. But it was a great game. It had a lot of hype. You had the 2 best teams during the regular season and to the postseason to that point. So and that's why we love football, games like that.
And players just want consistency. If you're going to call that in the first quarter, then they're going to call that in the fourth quarter. And I think Bradbury may have been under the impression they're going to let us play because they weren't calling holding throughout the game.
Maybe. I don't know. But but it was a great game. Very entertaining, obviously.
We love having you on, but we also wanted to have you reminisce on Tim McCarver. He replaced Howard Cosell in 1985. And your thoughts talk about different personalities to exchange one another in the booth. What were you thinking when Tim McCarver came into the booth for Howard?
Number one, I loved Tim. Loved him. Hall of Fame human being, Dan. So when Tim retired from the field from playing, I had done a few games with him. In those years, we were mixing and matching around the clock, and every week was somebody different. We had Don Drysdale, Earl Weaver had retired for a couple of years. I had Earl. I had Steve. I broke Steve Stone in, who's now had a 40-year career. And Tim and Jim Palmer were doing a lot of games. And Jim had then retired at that point, so he was full-time with us. So going into the 85 World Series, we were alternating postseason with NBC. So they had the playoffs. It was our World Series. And Howard, at that point, Cosell had become cantankerous, to use a word that he loved to use all the time, and bitter. And he would pretty much cast the pall over the entire crew because he didn't want to be there. And, we didn't want him to be there. And then about a week before the season ended, he wrote his second book called I Never Played the Game. And in the book, he trashed everybody at ABC, including Roone Arledge, who had given him the job and had let him have free reign all of those years. So when that came out, at ABC, they were talking about what are you going to do now? You're going to put this guy on the air who's angry and bitter, blah, 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 blah. So I get a call from one of the ABC executives during the playoffs, which are on NBC at that point, and he tells me we're replacing Cosell with Tim McCarver. That was one of the greatest phone calls I've ever had in my life. And Tim and Jim and I wound up doing a dance in the 85 World Series, 87 World Series, the 89 World Series, which was the earthquake. And then we shared the 95 World Series with NBC with something called the Cockamamie Baseball Network. But Tim, it's so funny. I think of so many things with Tim. One of them, of course, would be in the Earthquake World Series in 1989. We come on the air at 5:00. We're doing the scene set. The earth shakes at 5:04. But I had led to Tim. We're on camera, and then Tim is narrating and dissecting a play that had taken place 2 nights before in Game 2 in Oakland. And all of a sudden, I blurred out, "We're having an earthquake," and Tim put a death grip on my leg. And Tim would always say that, I grabbed his leg. I said, "Tim, I have the scars to prove it. I have been through earthquakes before. You haven't." But I had let me put it to you this way, Dan. 3-person booths are tough. You know that. It's very tough. And I've had a few of them in my career. This was one where I have to say that the 3 of us together, Palmer and McCarver and myself, we were, I think, better as a threesome than any combination of the 2 of us. So I loved it. I treasure the memories I had with Jim and with Tim, because they were so into making the telecast as great as it could be. They were great men. And, you had Palmer, who knows everything about pitching, obviously, and Timmy, who knew everything about everything as a catcher, played for 4 different decades. So he saw everything. And the one thing that I was certainly convinced of during those years, Dan, if he had become a manager, he'd have been a great manager. And he had opportunities to do that, but he just preferred broadcasting.
Yeah, I wondered about that because, we marvel at Tony Romo, or at least we have, where he's predicting something that would happen. Tim would tell you what he thought was going to happen a long time ago, that he was so ahead of every other analyst, it felt like, that he was playing the game while broadcasting the game and saw it in a unique way.
Very much so. He was able to do that. He was also able to bring up certain things that you never had thought about. And I mean, I knew a lot about baseball at that point because I'd been with the Reds. As you know, you were listening to me when, you were in your bassinet and I'm doing the Cincinnati Reds. And, I've been with Sparky Anderson and Pete Rose and Johnny Bench. I had a PhD in baseball. And then I started working with Tim, and he would bring things up. I thought to myself, wow, nobody talks about these things. It's so true. And he made it so interesting. And he loved the game, and he loved teaching the game to people. I would say when I think back through my career, I had John Madden, who, of course, taught millions of people to love football more than they did and to understand football. I would put McCarver in that category with baseball. I think Timmy taught as much baseball to millions of people as John Madden did football to the millions of people who love John.
But then do you allow a little more room for Madden and McCarver? Your role as play-by-play voice, does it change in accordance to who your analyst is?
It does, and with both of those guys, and so I'm not saying that everybody's the same, but these guys were at the top of at least my pyramid. The great thing about McCarver, so the way I do play-by-play, and you've heard me for years, I incorporate a lot of the fundamental or rudimentary analysis inside my play-by-play. Now, I've worked with some people who don't want that because I'm saying what they wanted to say. And if you know what I mean, in other words, I'll tell I don't have to give you just the basics, but I will tell. What I will do is give you a launching pad with McCarver, especially. And I said to Tim one day, I said, "Listen, am I taking up too much of your space?" He says, "No. You keep doing what you're doing because you're forcing me to go to a different area where I feel like I'm energized and I can bring up certain things that normally I would not bring up because I would do the rudimentary or fundamental analysis. So he loved it. And I loved working with him because, boy, you let him go and you don't know where he was going to go, but you would learn. You would learn and appreciate what he was talking about.
Yeah, I grew up with Tony Kubek when he was doing it, and I thought Tony was spectacular. And
I did too.
I mean, and very underrated as an analyst. And then when Tim came in, it's almost like, oh my God, this is so unique. And then all of a sudden, like the audience gets tired, it feels like after a while. And they're like, oh, he's a know-it-all. And but in the beginning, it's like, oh, this is great. He knows it all and he's sharing it. And then it felt like going, oh, here's Tim going to say, I'll tell you. And I don't know, it just feels like maybe that's what's going on with Tony Romo. Like, yeah, that's okay. Now we want to hear something else.
I don't know. Look, it's difficult, and at least with Tim, he was only on once a week. To me, it's amazing that especially when he took like the Mets job and he was with the Yankees, he did the Giants for a while, he did a bunch of Cardinal games. If you're on every night, that's really tough to bring up new stuff every night.
Yeah.
But on national television once a week, Tim was able to do that. But believe me, I would sit there next to Tim and go, damn, I've seen a couple of thousand baseball games. I never thought about that. And, and just, I mean, look, he was just a wonderful man. He was courteous, just the way he treated people. I mean, I loved the guy. He was fantastic. Just loved the man.
He's Al Michaels, the Hall of Fame broadcaster, getting ready to go tee it up with Jim Nance. Handicap-wise, how many shots is Nance giving you?
Well, we were partners yesterday, and we went down the tubes. We lost, I think, $40, whatever it was.
Okay.
So today, Jim and I, we're brethren. So, whatever our handicap, Jim's pretty good these days. You got to tell you. I played with Jim for a long time, but he's got that Johnny Miller.
Yeah.
My problem is, I went to those XGO clubs, which are very light and they're very good, but I can't hit the ball more than 150 yards. So, Danny, what am I going to do, kid? What do I do? I go to the Strixons, I go to the Pinnacles. What do you want me to do? Tell me something. Tell me anything. And I'm left-handed playing right-handed golf. I I feel like you're my shrink right now.
and you play on a great golf course. Bel Air is a wonderful golf.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
you coming out soon? When are you coming out?
I don't know when I'm coming out. But I did tell people Riviera is so pretty, but it's pretty hard too. Like certain courses you go, God, that looks so much fun. And then you get out there and you're like, damn, this is a difficult course.
I played in the Pro-Am the other day. I teed off at 750. It was 42 degrees, and the wind was 40 miles an hour in the Pro-Am. I went home and I slept for 3 hours until 5 o'clock. It was a lot of fun, though. Played with JT Poston, young pro. He's won a couple of tournaments. Good guy, really good guy.
Well, good luck today.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, good luck today.
I'll report. You won't be there Monday, but I'll report in anyway.
Tell hello, Jim. Hello, friends. That we said.
Hello, friends.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you, Al.
Take care, Danny. Be good, man.
That's Al Michaels reminiscing about Tim McCarver, who passed away yesterday at the age of 81.